What's up, nerds? Zach the Goblin here. Warhammer 40k is such an amazingly interesting universe, but with decades of lore, you might be stuck on where to even start. A lot of people will want to start with the Horus Heresy, but with over 50 books, it might feel like a daunting task. That is where this series comes in, where I will be explaining the plot of each Horus Heresy book and short story. This is for people who want to get into the series, but don't necessarily have the time to invest in reading entire books, people that are jumping around the series but maybe want some added context, or even people who just want a quick refresher. The next book in the series is technically the compilation book, Tales of Heresy, but I'm going to be doing individual videos on the short stories, so that way I can go a little more in depth for each of them. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe to see more books explained. Without further ado, this is the Horus Heresy Abridged After Desh'ea by Matthew Farrer. It's Goblin time! First, a little background and context. This takes place shortly after the World Eaters, at this point known as the Warhounds, were made whole by the discovery of their lost Primarch, Angron. Unfortunately, this doesn't go super well. Angron has sequestered himself in a dark hold in the bowels of the ship, and every Warhound captain who has tried to meet with Angron has failed to return. And that's about where this story starts. Karn, captain of the 8th Company, now the ranking captain, prepares himself for his turn. The anteroom outside the Primarch's chamber had become a place of held breath, a chamber suspended between dread and destiny. The Warhounds stood in a loose square around Karn, bodies coiled tight, eyes averted from the iron doors that hid the roaring monster beyond them. "You don't have to do this," said Draegr, breaking the long silence, and the relaxing of tension from the other Warhounds was audible even without Astartes' senses. Karn looked around the loose square of warriors and saw sneaking relief in their expressions. Someone had finally come out and said it. "You need not do it." Draegr could not bring himself to step between Karn and the doors, but his voice was steady. "You should not do it." The air still stank faintly of blood. The last time those doors opened, they had sent a crimson mist into the vents. Karn tasted it on the air and realized something worse. The entire ship had gone silent. No drills, no marching, no shouted orders, no Stormbird engines. Even the buzz of power weapons on the training decks had fallen still. It was as if the whole vessel dared not breathe while the thing beyond the doors raged. The silence taunted Karn's nerves. 8th Company makes me the ranking captain aboard. My rank, my oath, and my emperor. Together they close this matter. In case anyone is insolent enough to think there's even a matter to close. "No," came a voice from beside him. Yarrig, the master shellsmith from the artillery echelon. "The matter to close is that we must find a way to..." Yarrig motioned wordlessly towards the doors, face twisted in distress. "We don't know how this will end," said Horst, commander of the 9th Company Stormbird Squadron. Karn watched the man's hands form fists, shaking to match the shake in his voice. "And we have to plan for the worst. One of us here, now, may need to command the Legion yet, and..." He broke off. In the space beyond the doors, a voice, deeper than a tank rumble, mightier than a cannon blast, was roaring in anger. It rolled through the metal like a caged god, muffled by steel, but unmistakable. The Warhounds fell silent. They had shouted oaths and orders and obscenities over the clamor of gun, grenade, and chain axe, over the scream of Stormbird jets, over the keen and bellow of a dozen different Xenos. But Karn was the only one who dared to speak now over the distant, muted voice. "Enough," he said, his voice flat. "I'm not stupid enough to deny what we all think and know. You all owe Horst a salute for being the only one to find enough Astartes' guts in his belly to say it. The Emperor has brought us our Lord and Commander, the heartspring of our bloodline. That is who is with us now. Our general, the one of whom we are echoes. Do you remember that? Do you?" He looked at each warrior in turn, daring them to look away. None did. None could. The door shook again as another roar thundered behind them. "Now this," he went on, "this thing we are doing here, this is right. It is not for any Lord Commander. It is not for any high-helmed, gilt-edged custodian. It is not for anyone to come between the Warhounds and their Primarch and live." His shouts stiffened their backs, widened their eyes. "Only for the Emperor himself will we stand aside, and the Emperor has shown his wisdom. He has taken this duty, and he has laid it on our shoulders." He looked at Draegr. Like Karn, the man was dressed in white, bands of blue glittering across the high-collared tunic, boots and gauntlets, a dark ceremonial blue rather than the functional shipboard gray. The Emperor's lightning bolt emblem, gleamed at his collar and shoulder. His dress matched Karn's own, the formal garments with which the Warhounds symbolized they were about their most solemn business. It was obvious why. Draegr wanted to go in Karn's place, wanted to go in and die. "We have our Primarch now." Even saying the words sent a shiver through him. Decades they had searched, world after world, campaign after campaign, wondering when their turn would come. They had seen the transformation that overtook a legion the moment a Primarch was found. The Salamanders, the Iron Warriors, the others whose empty thrones had been filled, and now it was finally their turn. "We have our Primarch now," Karn said again, "and he will lead us as he wills. We belong to him, and as we belong to the Emperor, our plans no longer matter. The commander of the Warhounds will meet the Primarch of the Warhounds, and what happens will be as the Primarch wills it. So be it. No more talk." Besides, he thought as Draegr saluted and silently walked to the doors, "I don't suppose it will be too long before he works his way down to you." Karn felt a strange numbness. No fear, no hope, just a cold acceptance, a death blessing, a final clarity. Perhaps this was how the condemned felt before a Warhound's chain axe descended. Draegr keyed the locks. The doors groaned open. A plain staircase descended into darkness. Another roar, wordless and deep-throated, came echoing up from the gloom. Karn shook the thoughts away, walked forwards, and let the darkness fold over him as Draegr swung the doors closed at his back. Karn came down the broad, shallow steps into the great space that had been built into the ship as Angron's triumphal hall. He had been in it many times, but it was a different space now. The darkness is thick, broken only by the wounded glow of a few surviving lumen strips. Their weak pools of light showed dark splatters and puddles across the floor, but Karn did not bother to look closely. Even if the smell of it were not drowning his senses, he had seen the aftermath of death too many times not to know it. He felt the urge to look around him for his brothers. Gyr, the Legion Master, first to enter when the Emperor laid this duty on their shoulders. Kunar, First Company's champion, walking down with his cape and axe staff when the roaring beyond the doors told them Gyr was already dead. Anchez, fearless Anchez, joking even as he marched into the blood-scented dark. Hyazen and his banner bearers, believing their symbols might calm a god's rage. It hadn't worked. Vanch, the master-at-arms to old Gyr, had insisted on being next, even though the next to inherit the Legion's command, and so the duty of taking up embassy to their lord, should have been Shenargan of the Second Company. The point was moot now. Shenargan had met his end in here an hour after Vanch. The Legion's finest had tried to greet their father, and were repaid with slaughter. "I am your servant, Primarch," he thinks. "I would never dare call you mine, but if you would make peace with your Legion, while any of us still breathe." He steps forward, and the shadows move. At first, it's only a whisper of air, bare feet patting on the stone, something hulking, shifting in the dark. Then reality detonates. A force like a meteor drops onto him. Karn is smashed into a pillar, hard enough to break bone, hurled into another wall before he can even draw breath, landing hard on his back, gasping in pain. By the time the gasp had entered his lungs, reflex had taken over and he was up on one knee, turning to put his broken right arm and shoulder to the wall, and holding and tensing his left arm ready to ward as he scanned for motion, eyes shifting in the gloom, pushing into infrared to see the hulking shape hurtling forwards to fill his vision. But his will chains the instinct. Karn forces his hand down. Then he was skittering on his back across the floor, breath hammered out of his lungs and cracked clavicle flaring. Unthinkingly, he drew his knees to his chest, turning the skittering tumble into a backwards roll. Then will took over again, and Karn made himself stand upright and placed his hands by his sides. Was this how it was for the others? He caught himself wondering, and stopped thinking about it when the lapse in concentration started him swaying on the spot. He focused, half-heard movement closing in behind him, and opened his mouth to speak. And a moment later, he was jerked up from the floor. The back of his head and neck in the grip of a hand that felt bigger and harder than a dreadnought's rubble claw. "Another one like the rest." The voice in his ear was a rasp, a rumble, words like handfuls of hot gravel. Angron carries Karn across the hall in long, blurring strides and slams him into stone again and again, roaring one word like a broken prayer. "Fight! Fight me!
Fight!
Each impact fractures more of Karn's body. Each throw turns his vision red-black. Yet every time his warrior reflexes rise, he crushes them down. Every time he wants to defend himself, he refuses. Not because he can't fight. Karn is the 8th Company's captain, a master of slaughter, but because he will not fight this. Angron pins him against the wall, and at last, Karn sees him clearly. A Primarch's face, made for conquest, command, and the adoration of worlds. Copper-red hair framing a high brow. Pale eyes sunk deep beneath hard cheekbones and a warrior's aquiline nose. The blueprint of the Legion itself, horrifying in its familiarity. Karn sees his brothers in that face, sees himself, and then rage twists it into something monstrous. The eyes become pits of yellow fury. The proud lines of jaw and brow warp like metal under a furnace blow. It is a king's face worn by a beast. A father who has forgotten how to be a father. Angron raises a blood-crusted hand in front of Karn's face, trembling, coiled. Karn sees exactly how it could end. 2 fingers through the eyes, thumb crushing the throat, a single clench ripping away skull and spine like paper. But the hand didn't strike. Instead, Angron leans close, voice dropping into a rasp like hot gravel.
Why? I can see what you're made for. You're made to spill blood, just as I am. You're not born normal men any more than I was. So why? Why no weapon in your hand? Why do you walk down here so meek?
Karn smiles. Angron again slams him against the wall.
Why are you smiling?
His voice, when he found it, was hoarse and brittle.
I am proud of my Legion brothers.
Angron drops him on the floor, kicking him across the room. Karn crashes into a corpse so mangled its identity is beyond knowing. Angron stalks closer, and the rage snaps again, words fracturing, the nails biting deep behind his eyes. He spits contempt at warriors who won't fight.
Proud.
Angron's lips worked as though he were chewing on the word.
Your brothers. No warriors. None of you will fight. Why are you?
He was shaping his words with difficulty, and one hand had risen to clutch at his head.
How can...
And then he lifted Karn by the front of his tunic and slammed him back down.
None of you fight. My brothers and sisters.
The grip on Karn's tunic lifted, and he blinked his vision clear and looked up. Angron was not looking at him anymore. The Primarch had sunk back onto his haunches, one great hand over his eyes. His voice was still a powerful rumble, but barely formed and harsh with accent. Karn had to concentrate to make out the words.
My poor warriors. My lost ones.
And then he dropped his hand and looked into Karn's eyes. The fury was still in his stare, but it had been banked like a furnace, glowing a dull vermilion rather than roaring crimson.
Your brothers,
he said in a drained voice,
are not like my brothers, whoever you are.
Whoever you are. It took a moment for the words to sink in, and the next thought was, he doesn't know. How can he not know? Still flat on the floor, Karn took a shuddering breath.
My name is Karn. I am a warrior.
No! Angron's fist shattered the floor beside Karn's head. Stone chips stung his skin. Karn continues to try to speak, telling Angron that he is of the Legiones Astartes, the great league of battle brothers, in service to our beloved emperor. But the word emperor turns Angron into a storm front again. He screams, baying like a wounded animal, and flings Karn through the air until stone swallows him. Yet, even stunned, even half unconscious, Karn never breaks. Angron circles him, studying his wounds with a predator's curiosity. Karn bleeds like Angron. He takes punishment like Angron. The Primarch recognizes the kinship in the scent of gene-rot blood.
You carry yourselves like men used to iron in their hands, not air. If I were killing you on the hot dust, I'd know your names, because you'd have paid me the proper salute, and we'd have turned the rope together.
Around and around him, the padding footsteps. Karn could feel the Primarch's gaze on him, like heavy chain draped over his shoulders.
Does it bother you, dying to one who will never know your names?
Did it bother him? Karn wondered. But of course, that wasn't the question. He was an emissary, here to deliver a message, not to debate.
We are your legion, Primarch Angron. We are your instrument, and yours to command. The deaths of our enemies are yours to command, and so are our own.
Angron striked him again, this time with an open hand to the side of the head.
Mock me again, and I'll crumble your skull in my fingers before your mouth has finished the words.
Angron's voice was shaking with a precarious restraint that was more frightening than a bellow.
My warriors, my brothers and sisters, oh my brave ones, my brothers, my...
For several seconds, Angron simply paced, his jaw opening and working soundlessly, his head twisting from side to side.
Gone they were, gone without me.
Angron's fists began to move. He beat them against his thighs and chest, brought one fist and then the other around in long looping motions to smash into his mouth and cheeks. In the new quiet of the chamber, the sounds of his flesh splitting and his grunting breaths seemed magnified, textured. Karn watched, unable to speak, as Angron dropped to his knees, fist doubled in front of his face, muscles locked taut and body shaking. There was a silence. Finally, Karn broke it.
I envy them, he whispers. The ones who fought with you. I wish I had known them. They followed you to battle. That is all any of my brothers and I ask of you, sire. The chance to fight with you as they did.
Angron's rage falters into something grim, something almost like understanding. He speaks of his brother, Yokura, of the gladiator camps, of laughter in hell, of oaths cut into flesh, of triumph rope, scar after scar spiraling around his body. Red twists for victory, black twists for defeats survived. Angron had nothing but red on his rope, but the rope should bear a black twist for a Desh'ea. But it cannot, because Angron wasn't allowed to die there with his family. His voice fractures into anguish.
I can't go back. I can't go back to Desh'ea. I can't pick up the soil to make a black twist.
Angron flung Karn away and dropped to his knees.
I can't. I need to wear my failure, and I can't. Your emperor! Your emperor! I couldn't fight with them, and now I can't honor them! Nothing but red on me, Karn!
Said Angron, spreading his arms again.
But I don't deserve it!
I understand you, sire.
Karn answered, and he found that he did.
Your brothers and sisters, he corrected himself. They were defeated.
They died, Karn,
said Angron.
They all died. We swore to each other that we'd stand together against the High Riders' armies.
His voice softened to a whisper, heavy with grief.
I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be drawing breath. But I am, and I can't even pick up the dust from Desh'ea to make a black twist to remember them by. Why did your emperor do this to me, Karn?
They then speak of the emperor and of battles fought. He speaks of Perturabo, one of Angron's brothers. But then Angron begins another tightening spiral of rage and sorrow, lost in his memories of his brothers and sisters and their revolt against the High Riders, and how they earned the name the Eaters of Cities. Angron, lost to the nails, picks Karn up over his head and slams him into the floor, stone cracking under him. Angron, asking who will pay for his brothers and sisters, kicks Karn across the floor. Dizzy, fainting, Karn felt himself picked up and slammed down again, kicked again, grabbed by the neck. Something crashed into his chest and Karn sprawled on the floor, choking.
Get up and fight!
The end of it then, Karn thought. Well, I carried my embassy as well as a warhound could. He tried to rise and couldn't, so he lay full length on his back and spoke weakly into the air.
You are my Primarch, Lord Angron. I swore that I would seek you out and follow you, and I will not fight you. And if I must die, then yours is the hand I will die by. I am Karn, and I am loyal to your will.
Silence. Then came Angron's voice, frighteningly close, almost by his ear.
You are warriors, Karn.
The Primarch said.
I know warriors when I see them. This Emperor.
Angron said, palpably struggling to keep his voice level.
He is the one you swore to.
We swore to each other,
Karn managed to get out.
in his name and on his banner,
His breath took a long time to come.
that we would not raise a hand against you.
Angron said nothing for a time. Karn's consciousness had begun to flicker again by the time he spoke.
Such devotion from such warriors.
His voice trailed off, faded, and returned. His hands were pressed to his head again.
A man to whom your oaths, for him you would.
Minutes passed. Angron's voice came back.
This room, I can leave it.
It took Karn a moment to work out how to answer.
This is the flagship of the Warhounds. It is the instrument of your will and yours to command, Primarch, as are we.
For a long time, there was no answer. Just quiet and dark, and just as Karn was starting to feel his consciousness go again, he felt himself lifted, slowly and gently now, and carried through the dark. Outside, the Warhounds stand braced for another massacre. The knock comes, the portals groan open, and there, in the light, stands their Primarch, towering and wary, supporting their battered captain in one arm. For long minutes, each Warhound in turn blanched under the Primarch's gaze, until Karn managed to lift his head and speak.
Salute your Primarch Warhounds. Salute he who shed blood on the hot dust and made the High Riders pay for their arrogance. Salute your Bloodsire and the General of the 12th. Salute the one whose soldiers were named the Eaters of Cities. Salute him, Astartes.
The Warhounds obeyed. Axes slammed to the floor. Hands rise. Voices thunder in a storm of loyalty and relief. They gather around Angron in a wide circle, not daring to look away, not daring to blink. Karn staggers into their midst, joining the salute, adding his broken voice to the roar.
Primarch,
Said Angron. His voice was a murmur, but it cut the Warhounds' voices straight to silence.
I am a general again. Primarch!
Shouted Draegr in response.
General! Your warriors were the eaters of cities, Lord. But with you to command us, the Warhounds will be the eaters of worlds!
For a moment, Angron swayed. His eyes and fists closed. But then he looked at Draegr, and then to Karn, and he smiled.
World eaters.
He said slowly, tasting the sounds.
World eaters. So you shall be then, little brothers. You'll learn to cut the rope. We shall bleed and be brothers.
This time they all met his eyes. Slowly, one of Angron's great fists came up to return their salutes.
Come with me then, world eaters. Come down into my chamber and we will speak.
Angron turned on his heel and walked back into his chamber. Silently, supporting Karn in their midst, the World Eaters followed their Primarch down into the darkness that stank of blood. Thank you so much for staying till the end of the video. I sincerely appreciate it. Each and every one of you are amazing. Let me know what you thought of the video in the comments below, and until next time, Goblin out.